The stars above the colony world of Varen, 4 burned cold and silent. For weeks, the people of Varen had lived in fear. Their cities were already half empty, their farms abandoned, their skies filled with smoke from the last attack. The enemy was coming again. The Draxus, a brutal warlike race, had taken system after system. Every planet they touched turned into ashes. They did not negotiate, they did not accept surrender. They destroyed, consumed, and moved on. Varen, 4 was next. The alien leaders gathered inside the emergency council chamber. Their voices were tense, their faces pale. "We cannot hold them," one said. "Our fleet is gone. Our soldiers are broken. If the Draxus return tomorrow, it will be the end." Another whispered, "There is still one chance. Send the call." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. The Galactic Council had already ignored them. The other empires demanded payment they did not have. No one wanted to risk fighting the Draxus. That left only one option. The desperate one. A signal. It would travel far, through the stars, and it would ask for help from anyone who could hear. Even outsiders. Even the young, strange species called humans. The council agreed. They had no choice. The message was short, almost broken, but clear. "This is Varen, 4. We are under attack. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us." The signal went out. And then, silence. Hours passed. Days. The Varen people tried to hope, but each sunrise felt heavier than the last. Children cried in the shelters. Families packed what little food they had, preparing to flee into the wilderness. Soldiers sharpened their old weapons, though they knew they stood no chance. No reply came. The leaders sat in darkness, listening to the endless static of the comms. Some cursed themselves for hoping. Others whispered prayers. And then, a sound. A small flicker of life in the static. A voice. Rough, deep, and not from any race they knew. "This is humanity. We heard your call." The council froze. For a moment, they thought it was a trick, some cruel joke from the Draxus. But the signal was real. The voice repeated, "This is humanity. We heard you." The Varen were stunned. Humans? The newcomers? They had only joined the galactic stage a few decades ago. The great empires mocked them as children, too weak, too small, too inexperienced to matter. One of the leaders muttered, "What can they do? One ship, maybe 2? That will not stop the Draxus." Another said bitterly, "Better than nothing." At least someone answered. Still, deep down, they did not believe salvation was coming. The next night, alarms blared. The colony's long-range scanners picked up movement at the edge of the system. Ships. The people rushed to the sky towers, staring into the blackness of space. At first, they expected to see Draxus warships, huge, burning, and merciless. But what they saw instead left them breathless. Shadows moved against the stars. Not one. Not 2. Dozens. A fleet. Massive engines burned like suns as entire formations of ships entered the system. They were not Draxus. They carried the banners of blue and white. They were not predators. They were human. The Varen Council could not believe their eyes. Humanity had not sent one ship. They had not sent a token force. They had sent an entire fleet. Warships of different shapes and sizes took formation around Varen, 4. Some were sleek and fast, built for hunting. Others were heavy carriers, their hulls glowing with power. Fighters launched in tight swarms, circling like protective birds. The human commander's voice filled the comms. "This is Fleet Command. Varen, 4, you are not alone. We stand with you." The Varen leaders were speechless. Why would they do this?" one whispered. No one had an answer. The humans were strangers. They had no trade, no alliance, no debt to repay. Yet here they were, risking everything for a colony that meant nothing to them. Children in the shelters cheered as the human ships spread across the sky like guardians of old. Soldiers who had lost all hope stood taller, their hands trembling with new courage. For the first time in many weeks, Varen, 4 dared to believe. But hope came with fear. Because the Draxus were not far behind. And when they arrived, even an entire human fleet might not be enough. The Varen Council looked to the stars, their voices filled with both wonder and dread. They asked humans for help, one said quietly. The answer hung heavy in the air as the human ships burned brighter against the void. They never expected an entire fleet. The arrival of the human fleet changed everything. For the first time in weeks, the colony world of Varen 4 felt a small spark of hope. Yet hope was dangerous. Hope could break hearts if it failed. The Varen leaders stood inside their council chamber, staring at the holographic display. Dozens of human ships were now in orbit, their engines glowing with steady fire. Every formation was tight, every movement precise. These were not wandering explorers. These were warships. The alien leaders whispered among themselves. Why would they send so many? They risk too much for strangers. They must want something in return. No one could understand. The great empires of the galaxy had ignored Varen's call for help. Some had even mocked their weakness. Yet the youngest race of all, the humans, had sent a fleet. The council finally opened a channel. A human face appeared on the screen. A man with sharp eyes, wearing a dark uniform with silver markings. His voice was calm, strong, and carried no hesitation. This is Admiral Hayes of the Terran Fleet. We received your distress call. We are here to defend your world. The Varen High Chancellor tried to keep her voice steady. You brought so many ships. Why? We have nothing to give you. No wealth, no power, no allies. Why would you risk your fleet for us? The human's answer was simple. Because you asked. The council fell silent. They expected demands, conditions, or threats. But the humans asked for nothing. Another Varen leader pushed forward, confused. But the Draxus are not a small enemy. You must know this. Their fleet is larger than yours. Why would you fight them for us? The admiral leaned forward. His words were steady, like steel. We fight because it is right. You called for help. And humanity does not ignore a cry for help. The room shook with whispers. The Varen could not understand such a thing. In the galaxy they knew, power was everything. Empires acted only for profit or control. Nobody gave aid freely. Nobody fought for strangers. And yet, here were the humans. Outside, the Varen people gathered in the streets, watching the skies. The human ships spread into defensive lines above the planet, forming a shield of metal and fire. Small crafts darted between them like sparks. Carriers opened their bays, launching fighter wings that flew in tight, perfect patterns. The sight was overwhelming. Children pointed at the glowing engines with wide eyes. Soldiers whispered that perhaps they had not been abandoned after all. Families held each other close, daring to believe survival was possible. But not everyone was convinced. In the council chamber, one old general spoke bitterly. They are reckless. When the Draxus come, they will be crushed. And when they fall, we will fall with them. The High Chancellor shook her head slowly. Or perhaps, she said, they will teach us what it means to fight without fear. Far above, the human admiral gave his next command. Varen, 4, send us your planetary maps. Show us your weak points, your cities, your shelters. We will place our ships where they are needed most. The Varen officers hesitated. To share such data was to give a foreign power control of their world's secrets. But the admiral's voice carried no greed, no hidden hunger. Only resolve. The data was sent. Within minutes, the human fleet moved like a living creature. Ships shifted into new formations, spreading across the system. Defensive lines formed around transport lanes, orbital stations, and civilian shelters. Every vulnerable point was covered. The Varen watched in awe. No empire in the galaxy had ever defended them with such precision, such care. And then came the warning. The long-range scanners screamed to life. The Draxis were on the move. Dozens of enemy warships, massive and cruel, were already entering the system. Their numbers were far greater than expected. Twice the size of the human fleet. Fear returned like ice in the veins of every Varen. In the command chamber, the alien leaders panicked. They will slaughter us. We must flee. The humans cannot hold them. But Admiral Hayes stood firm. His voice cut through the fear like a blade. No. We hold this line. Tell your people, stay in their shelters. Trust us. The High Chancellor stared at him, her eyes filled with doubt. You would risk everything for us? Even against such numbers? The Admiral nodded once. We did not come here to watch you die. We came here to stand with you. The chamber fell silent. For the first time, the Varen leaders understood. Humans were not here for profit, not for land, not for control. They were here because someone had asked for help. The first Draxis ships appeared on the edge of the system, their jagged hulls burning like knives in the darkness. The ground shook with the sound of incoming war. The Varen watched the sky, hearts pounding. The battle was about to begin. And they would soon learn what it truly meant when humanity answered a call for help. The stars trembled as the Draxis fleet entered the system. Their ships were enormous, dark, and jagged, machines built for destruction. Engines glowed red like burning wounds, and their hulls looked more like weapons than vessels. Each ship carried enough firepower to shatter cities. And there were so many of them. The Varen watched in horror. Their scanners counted the enemy ships one by one. The number grew higher, then higher still, until it became almost unbearable. Twice their size, whispered a Varen officer. The Draxis fleet is twice the size of the humans. Fear spread through the colony like fire. Families in shelters clutched one another. Soldiers gripped their weapons even though they knew they would never fire them. And the leaders of Varen asked the same question again and again. Why would the humans stay? Why would they fight this? High above, the human fleet was silent. They did not run. They did not flinch. Admiral Hayes stood on the command deck of his flagship, eyes locked on the tactical display. Red markers filled the screen, the Draxis Armada, spreading across space like a storm. Blue markers, his own ships, were smaller, fewer, but steady. He spoke, calm and sharp. Fleet command to all ships. Hold formation. The Draxis think they can scare us. They're wrong. We hold the line. For Varen. For humanity. His voice carried across every human ship. Soldiers and pilots straightened in their seats. Fear was there, yes, but stronger than fear was resolve. The first clash came sudden and violent. The Draxis ships opened fire. Massive beams of red energy tore through the void, slamming against human shields. Explosions flashed like suns, shaking the fleet. Shields holding! A human officer shouted. Then the human fleet answered. Dozens of cannons fired at once. Torpedoes streaked across the blackness. Fighters launched in swarms, darting between enemy beams like sparks in a storm. The sky lit up with fire, metal, and death. From the surface of Varen, the people saw it all. Their skies burned as two fleets clashed in orbit. The ground shook with distant thunder, though no sound should have carried through the vacuum. Children cried, elders prayed, and soldiers whispered words of awe. The humans fought like no one the Varen had ever seen. They were not the strongest. Their ships were not the largest. But they fought with precision, with unity. Every movement was planned. One ship would draw fire, another would flank, and a third would strike at the exposed enemy. They sacrificed without hesitation. A smaller human frigate moved into the path of a Draxis superweapon. It burned, broke apart, and was lost. But its sacrifice saved an entire Varen city below. On the command deck, Admiral Hayes did not flinch. Mark their flagships. Push the attack where it hurts. Fighters, cut their supply lines. Frigates, screen the transports. The Draxis grew angry. They had expected an easy slaughter. Instead, the humans fought them to a standstill. But slowly, painfully, the truth became clear. The Draxis were too many. More enemy reinforcements poured into the system. Their fire grew heavier. Human ships began to fall, one by one, their blue markers blinking out on the tactical display. The Varen leaders panicked. They cannot win. They must retreat. If they stay, they will all die. But the humans did not retreat. They fought harder. A squadron of human fighters broke through enemy lines, striking a Draxis carrier. The explosion lit the void, tearing the massive ship apart. Human crews cheered, but the victory was brief. 2 more Draxis carriers replaced it, pressing forward. On the ground, the Varen High Chancellor whispered to herself as she watched the burning sky. Why? Why do they fight so hard for us? No answer came. Only the thunder of war. In the middle of the chaos, a Varen officer shouted from the scanners. Enemy reinforcements detected. Twice as many ships entering the system now. The council chamber froze. The humans were already outnumbered. Already bleeding. And yet, the Draxis were bringing even more. The High Chancellor's voice broke with despair. It will destroy them. It will destroy us all. But on the human flagship, Admiral Hayes stood tall, eyes burning with determination. So be it. We hold the line. The Varen could hardly believe it. Against impossible odds, the humans were not running. They were not surrendering. They were standing. And as the enemy fleet grew larger, the humans only fought harder. The battle had only just begun. The void of space burned red. The Draxis reinforcements had arrived, their fleet stretching so wide it seemed endless. Their weapons glowed, their engines thundered, and their numbers crushed every hope the Varen still carried. From the colony shelters, the people wept. From the council chamber, the leaders trembled. They must retreat, one council member whispered. The humans must leave before it's too late. Another shook his head. If they stay, they will all die with us. But when the message reached Admiral Hayes aboard the Terran flagship, his answer was simple. We are not leaving. Not now. Not ever. The Varen High Chancellor stared at him through the comms, her voice breaking. You cannot win. You cannot stand against this fleet. Please, for the sake of your people, withdraw while you still can. Admiral Hayes did not flinch. His voice was calm, but his eyes carried fire. Maybe we cannot win, but we will not let them take you. Humanity does not run from monsters. The words struck the Varen like thunder. They had never heard such resolve. In their world, wars were fought for profit, for land, for advantage. No one risked everything for strangers. No one except the humans. The battle raged on. Human ships broke apart under heavy fire. Carriers launched every last fighter they had. Frigates threw themselves into enemy fire to protect the planet below. The stars themselves seemed to scream with the clash of fleets. And yet, even as ships burned, the humans fought with a strange kind of hope. Because behind the chaos, they had a plan. Admiral Hayes spoke into the fleet-wide channel, his voice steady as steel. Strike teams, move now. Target their flagships. Cut the head off the beast. Across the fleet, small human ships broke formation and slipped into the shadows of war. These were not heavy warships. They were fast, small, and deadly. Each carried commandos trained for one mission only: infiltration. The Varen commanders watched in shock. They are sending soldiers into the Draxis warships? That is madness. But it was not madness. It was human courage. Moments later, explosions rippled inside a Draxis battleship. One of their mighty vessels, untouchable by normal weapons, shuddered and tore apart from within. Cheers echoed across the human fleet. The Varen stared, wide-eyed. They boarded the enemy ship. They destroyed it from the inside. More blasts followed. Another Draxus cruiser went dark. Then, another. The Draxus, furious, pressed harder. Their fire rained down like meteors, but the human fleet held firm. On the ground, the Varen people watched the skies glow with fire. They had expected death. Instead, they saw a miracle, a fleet that refused to bow. In the council chamber, silence fell. Slowly, the High Chancellor whispered, "They are not fighting for victory. They are fighting for us." Yes, the humans were bleeding, but their resolve was unbroken. Every sacrifice, every ship lost, was made to shield the colony below. They did not fight because it was easy. They fought because it was right. The Varen soldiers, once hopeless, felt something new rise inside them. They gripped their weapons tighter, lifted their heads higher. If the humans could stand against death itself, then maybe the Varen could learn to fight again too. Above, the Draxus roared forward. Their numbers still dwarfed the humans. Their weapons still rained fire. But the Draxus had made one mistake. They thought numbers alone could break human resolve. They did not understand that humanity's strength was not only in ships and weapons. It was in their will. On the flagship, Admiral Hayes stood as the deck shook with another blast. His officers reported losses, but he gave no sign of fear. "Hold the line," he said quietly. "Every second we fight, every ship we destroy, we save lives below." Another explosion rocked the fleet. A human destroyer split apart, its crews sacrificing themselves to shield Varen transports. The Draxus closed in, but the human fleet refused to scatter. In the shadows of battle, another strike team completed its mission. A Draxus carrier erupted into fire, its wreckage lighting the void like a second sun. The Varen people cheered. For the first time in their history, they saw what it meant to fight not for empire, not for conquest but for each other. Still, the cost was terrible. Human ships burned. Their fleet grew smaller with every passing minute. The High Chancellor whispered to herself, tears in her eyes. "They will die for us. Strangers, and yet they fight harder than anyone we have ever known." Outside, the battle reached its peak. Both sides bled. Both sides raged. But only one side carried something deeper than survival. Human resolve. And as the Draxus realized this, for the first time, a shadow of doubt fell over their mighty fleet. The humans were not done yet. The war for Varen, 4 was not over. The Draxus fleet had been broken. The survivors fled into the darkness of space, their ships burning, engines damaged, morale shattered. What remained of the mighty armada was now a shadow of its former terror. The humans did not cheer. They did not celebrate. Their fleet was battered, many ships destroyed, many brave crews lost. But they had kept their promise. Varen, 4 was still standing. Its cities, though scarred, were still home to the people who had called for help. On the surface, the Varen looked up at the sky. Smoke and fire still marked the battle, but the alien people felt a warmth they had not known for decades. They were alive. Because strangers, because humans, had answered. In the council chamber, the leaders gathered, silent, exhausted, and humbled. The High Chancellor's voice finally broke the quiet. "They asked humans for help," she whispered. "And humanity answered with an entire fleet." Her words echoed in the room. No one had understood the humans before. Now, they realized something that could not be ignored. Humans were not weak. Humans were not small. They were a force unlike any other, brave, selfless, and relentless. A message came from Admiral Hayes, appearing on the comm screen. He looked weary, his uniform scorched, but his eyes were calm. "Varen, 4, your world is safe. The Draxus have been forced to retreat. We lost many ships, and many brave souls gave their lives today. But your people live. That is why we fight." The High Chancellor swallowed hard. "Why? Why would you risk so much for us? You have no debt. You have no claim here. Why fight at all? The Admiral's gaze was steady. Because we are human. One day, we might need help too. And we hope someone answers our call. We fight because it is right, not for profit, not for power, and not for reward. The Varen could not find words. For the first time, they felt the weight of true courage, the kind that comes from principle, not fear, not ambition. Outside, human ships began repairs, tending to their wounded, salvaging what they could. They would leave soon, their mission complete. Yet their presence had already changed the galaxy. The people of Varen, 4 began to rebuild. Families returned to their homes. Soldiers cleaned their weapons, not for another war, but for hope. Schools opened. Markets slowly reopened. And everywhere, the story of what had happened spread. Children asked their parents, wide-eyed, "Who are the humans?" And parents whispered, awe in their voices, "The humans, they are heroes." Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread. Other alien civilizations listened. They had long dismissed humanity as a minor player, a species not to be feared, not to be respected. They would no longer do so. In the darkness of deep space, among systems far from Varen, whispers traveled. They fought for strangers. They did not ask for anything in return. They sent an entire fleet. And in every corner of the galaxy, those words planted a seed: never underestimate the humans. Back on Varen 4, the High Chancellor looked at the horizon, the glow of human engines fading in the distance. "They are gone," she said softly. "But their legacy will remain." Soldiers nodded, citizens nodded, children stared in awe. No one would ever forget what had been done for them. Admiral Hayes' fleet sailed into the stars, battered but unbroken. Many ships would never return home. Many brave souls had paid the ultimate price. Yet their courage, their selflessness, their resolve, had created something more powerful than any weapon. A story. A story that would travel across generations, across worlds, and across time. When humans are called to help, they do not hesitate. When they answer, they bring everything they have. The Varen 4 skies grew quiet again. Stars shone peacefully. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, humans sailed onward, ready to answer the next call, carrying the unspoken promise. No one will be left behind. And so, the legend of humanity began. The story of how strangers, unexpected, underestimated, and bold, could change the fate of an entire world. And the galaxy would never forget.